Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Back to Basics. Our show for today is tips for good sleep hygiene. Good morning, Sherry Ann, and good morning to everybody that's watching us via Facebook. And my name is Alex Juarez. I'm the communications director. And yeah, you might notice that Dana's not here today with us because she is taking a leadership class she's going to be doing for several weeks. So I get the joy to spend some time with you and with Coach Sherry Ann to continue learning about back to basics, nutrition, and wellness. So AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence and nearly 38 million members across the nation and over 900,000 in Arizona, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to families: health, security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. So, in the month of March, we will focus on savings and planning by providing specific tools and information to help consumers manage their debt and savings. AARP is a wise friend and a fierce defender of consumers. We are here helping you manage your money decisions while fighting on your behalf to protect what you have earned and increase your options for savings. The coronavirus pandemic, high unemployment rate, economic challenges have also made these financial security decisions even more difficult for consumers. So AARP will focus on getting the right resources to the right people at the right time. So visit us at www.moneymap.aarp.org. And that's for resources and information. Or you can visit us at www.aarp.org/near me for the virtual events close to you. So, Sherry-Ann, welcome again. Great to see you. I bet you were pretty busy this weekend again, right? Very active.
Yes, I always stay active. That's a key thing for me, but it's just such a beautiful time right now in Arizona. It's wonderful to be outside, and if you're not outside, you're missing out. So
That's right.
yeah, I always take
What's the saying that a body in motion stays in motion?
Right. Yeah.
So
This one's
always
in motion.
That's wonderful. So what do we have planned today? We're going to talk about good sleep hygiene. What is good sleep hygiene? I've heard of it. I mean, I can imagine it's got to be tips on how do we sleep better? How do we rest? How do we let our mind rest a little bit more? But why don't we go into that, Sherry-Ann?
It's so funny because like some people really don't like the word sleep hygiene because they think hygiene and they're thinking like cleanliness or teeth or whatever. And so you can call it hygiene, but it's really mainly about conditions and practices that you're putting in place. And with the back to basics, the three pillars to wellness and one of them is sleep. The other two are obviously moving your body and good nutrition and hydration. But sleep is so paramount to our well-being. And it's one of the things that people take for granted. They really do. They just don't really give it the attention that it deserves and that we deserve. And so like, take for instance, like how well did you sleep last night? Do you ever get up in the morning and evaluate how well you slept last night?
Well, I don't have trouble sleeping. I do wake up maybe once during the night or something, but just turn over a little bit and then fall back asleep. So I think I sleep pretty good, and at least 7 hours, minimum of 7 hours. I do.
Good. Do you remember dreaming?
That I don't. I never remember what I dream about.
And did you wake up to an alarm clock?
No. I don't. I pretty much have a biological clock that normally between 5:30 and 5:45 or 6 o'clock, I'm up.
That's because you have a good sleep routine. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about. And because it's really interesting. So the questions you want to ask yourself when you wake up is, did I sleep well last night? Do I remember dreaming? Did I have to wake to an alarm? And did I sleep solidly without waking up? And those are things that you kind of want to just think about when you're thinking about, did I sleep well? And it's really quite interesting because 2/3 of people that live, in the United States, actually in the world, in conventional places, are sleep deprived. So 2/3 are chronically sleep deprived.
Wow. 2/3 of the population. Wow. It's
That is a
amazing.
lot. And so because of that, we're resorting to caffeine. There's so
Right.
many caffeinated beverages out there now that people are tapping into, and
Hmm.
taking these long naps during the day, which are actually really not very good for you. But the problem with being sleep deprived is it contributes to a whole host of problems. It can lead to dementia. It can lead to depression.
Hmm.
It can lead to mood disorders,
Right.
heart disease, elevated blood pressure, weight gain issues, which can lead to diabetes. There's fall related injuries, especially for elderly as they get older. If you're not sleeping well, your cognitive, you're not able to maintain your good balance. And
Hmm.
so there's all kinds of issues that can happen with sleep deprivation. And so it's really important. Were you going to ask something?
Yeah, I was going to question because I've got some friends that say I only need 4 hours, 5 hours a night, and then I'm perfectly fine. I can function perfect. What is a good night's sleep? How many hours does the body need to rest, or the brain needs to rest?
It's about 7 to 8. And so
7 to 8 hours.
it is
Uh-huh.
7 to 8. And so, I mean, that's for an adult. For children, it's clearly more because they're doing so much. They're growing,
Hmm.
their brains are developing, their bodies are doing a lot of work. But on average, it's about 7 to 8. So those people that say that they're functioning off of 4 hours of sleep, or, less than six, because six, some people can get by with six.
Hmm.
Um, but the thing is that there is well, it's interesting because in Sanjay Gupta's book, Keep Sharp, he talks about in one of the sleep studies, there is a small population that have this gene mutation that can actually do what they need to do in 4 hours. And there's not a lot of information on it, but they have discovered that there are those anomalies out there, but they're
Right.
very, very few and far between. And so
Okay.
what's
Hmm.
happening is you end up creating this deficit that you really ever can't get to catch up on. And one of the
Right.
problems with that too is people think like kind of like the reverse of a weekend warrior. Like they don't do a whole lot during the week physically, but on the weekend they just go out and thrash themselves. And it's
Hmm.
like, no, we need to have balance throughout the week. Well, it's like people like they'll be sleep deprived throughout the week, and then they think that they can bank that sleep on the weekend. Like they can
Yeah.
get up and, I mean, sleep in on Saturday and Sunday and make up for it. But the reality of the situation is that's not how our bodies are designed. Like there's so much that happens when we're sleeping, and that's why you need to sleep. So during your sleep, that's when your body is repairing itself. It's
Right.
replenishing itself. It's healing itself from your brain to your heart to your immune system. Your tissues are healing because when we're exercising, we actually do a lot of damage to our tissues, and
Uh-huh.
it repairs and heals itself stronger at night. And so
Okay.
it's really important that we have that sleep so our bodies can kind of do a turnover.
Sure.
Our brain actually does a washing of itself and gets the toxins out of the gray matter out of our brain. Memories are formed. There's just so much that happens when we're sleeping and that's why I was saying people just don't give it the importance that it needs to be given.
Is there such a thing as too much sleep?
Well, sure, because so our bodies. So before we had light bulbs, and
Hmm.
things like electronics that impact our ability to have a circadian rhythm, our rhythms are designed to go with the rising of the sun and the falling of the sun, and
Hmm.
so that our bodies, we create natural melatonin in the pineal gland in our brain, and that's all associated with light. So when the sun goes down, our body temperature actually begins to cool, and we create melatonin, and our bodies just know that it's like it's time to go to sleep. And then when the
Right.
sun comes up, and but with like here in Arizona in the wintertime, because I awake without a clock at 5 o'clock
Yeah.
regardless, and even if it's dark or it's light, like that's just my rhythm that I've created over time with habit, regardless of the light that's happening with the sun. Because in the wintertime, the sun sets a lot earlier too.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
to answer your question, is there too much sleep? Yes and no. So yes, because if you're sleeping more than 8 hours, 9 hours, there's usually something wrong. You might have a health issue, you might have a mental disorder issue, you might be fighting depression,
Hmm.
you know, because sleep is our bodies are healing. So think about when you've been sick. Like back to the last time you were sick.
Sure.
What are you told when you're sick? rest.
Stay in bed, rest, sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like hydrate and sleep.
yeah.
And your body will do what it's supposed to do to heal itself. So if you're sleeping extra, it's usually an indicator that you've got something going on, whether it be mental or physical. And so, but what's too much? That's really hard to say. On a consistent basis, if you're sleeping, 9, 10 hours every day, every night, then you might want to take a look at, what's really going on.
That's right. I want to remind everybody watching this to please post your question on the chat. That way, Coach Sherry Ann can answer your question there. Um, Earlier, you talked about the alarm clock, and that kind of intrigued me. Why the question on the alarm clock? And is it not good for you to have an alarm clock or be woken up by an alarm?
There's nothing wrong with it. People need, people have jobs to get to, appointments, and things like that, kids to get to school. The
Right.
thing is that if you're waking up to an alarm clock and it's shocking you out of your rhythm of sleep, like if you wake up if you are awakened out of a deep sleep, your body hasn't come from deep to light to REM to awakening. And so it wakes you out of a deep sleep and you're groggy for a while. And
Right.
so one of the ways to figure out how well you need to sleep is, there's sleep monitors that you can get. But
Mhm.
the thing is with an alarm clock, if you're waking up to an alarm clock on a consistent basis and you're not feeling rested, that means you're not going to bed early enough. You're not going to bed.
Okay.
And
Right.
so on your time, on your circadian rhythm time. And so
Okay.
alarm clocks aren't bad. It's just be aware that if you're awakening to it, like sometimes I set an alarm anyway, regardless, but there'll be times where I'm coming out of the sleep and it's almost like I know it's going to go off and then I go ahead and change it
You
right.
immediately just
And so I have it there as kind of a backup.
yeah.
And also, there's some mornings where I have to wake up a little bit earlier to get some things done. But
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with an alarm clock. It's
Okay.
just be aware that if you're using it and it's awakening you and you're groggy, then you're not getting enough sleep.
Yeah. And how popular, I mean, or how good are these devices? I hear a lot of people wear them at night. I choose not to wear mine at night, but I hear the new Apple devices, the Fitbits, all those are wonderful that they monitor your sleep. How accurate are they, and should you rely on them?
Well, there's ones that are very, very accurate, and there's some that I think are questionable. So there's a Whoop strap. It's WHOOP. There's that one. There's the Aura ring. So it's OURA. And these have these, and the Apple Watch does this too. So what it does is it emits these lights into your cellular, and so it's actually reading your body temperature, your pulse. It measures your movement at night because
Hmm.
when we are in deep sleep, we're not moving. And when we're in light sleep, there's light movement. When we're in REM, there's quite a bit of movement because in REM is where you're dreaming.
Right.
And so there's a lot that goes into those sleep studies to create those devices. And so they're actually things that I would look at if you're going to use a sleep device is it'll give you your sleep stages. Is
Right.
taking a look at that, taking a look at your body temperature. People don't realize that their body temperature really is a huge indicator. It will impact your ability to sleep because if you're too warm, you're not going to sleep. Your body's going to keep waking up because it's trying to cool itself.
Sure.
And so that's why an ideal room temperature is 60 to 67 degrees. And if you don't want to have your room that cold, like in the summertime, if you don't want to be running your AC all the time,
Right.
get a fan, sleep with just a sheet on, and sleep with as minimal clothes as you possibly can. And it's just making sure that your body temperature, so watching your body temperature and then your heart rate, and so the heart rate one is one I look at a lot, and I've kind of played with it with doing different things in my sleep ritual before I go to bed,
Right.
my bedtime
Hmm.
ritual, And so your heart rate is a great indicator too, as well as to tell you how well you're recovering from your day, from your stresses, your external stresses, your exercise stresses. Because if your heart rate stays elevated, that means you're not recovering properly. So the devices they can be very handy. They're also kind of costly. So it's
Sure.
one of
Yeah.
those things where you have to weigh out like, is it really important? You can definitely get the information that you need just by being aware and paying attention
Hmm.
to your body. But the devices are just kind of a cheat sheet to help accelerate it.
Exactly. So we have a very interesting question from Todd. I think this will help quite a bit, but he wants to know how long before sleep should avoid should we avoid food or alcohol? And is there a duration before sleep to stop screen time on your laptop or tablets, whatever, well, phones? What is restless leg syndrome and how do we solve it? And once sleep deprived, can you recover?
Okay, so
Several questions in that.
so we'll start with, so how long, so these are in the tips that I'm gonna be giving
Yep.
you. And so the food and the alcohol one is really important. And I kind of touched on it, I think, a little bit 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And that's
Mhm.
because alcohol actually does create a sedative feeling for people. It does make them
Mhm.
sleepy, but at the same time, it actually elevates your heart rate because it's sugar.
Yeah.
And so it's impacting your ability to get good sleep. So having a glass of wine at dinner is great. If you go beyond, 6 o'clock, I would say you need to stop drinking alcohol probably 3 hours prior to going to bed in order
Okay.
for it to go through your system fully so it's not impacting your sleep. And the
Sure.
same with food. If you eat later in the evening, it does impact your ability to sleep because your body temperature is elevated to help digest that food, and your energy is being sent to the stomach to make that happen, to the digestive system. And so
Right.
it's really, ideally it would be to do 3 hours before you're going to bed, because the thing is when we release these hormones when we sleep as well. And
Mhm.
so one of the key things to look at is, have you ever gotten ready to go to bed and all of a sudden you feel hungry? Has that ever
Yeah,
happened? Okay.
absolutely.
So that actually is an indicator that your sleep is out of balance, because we
Ah,
release these hormones that initiate hunger, and it's leptin, which suppresses our appetite. I'm trying to remember these. And then ghrelin is one that stimulates. And so those are in sync with your circadian rhythm. So if your circadian rhythm is out of whack, then the hormones that are released to stimulate and suppress your appetite are also out of whack. And
ah,
so it's important to, so to answer that question, I would say 3 hours before you're going to bed. It would be ideal. I know that's not ideal for everybody, especially if they're at an event or out with friends, but that would be ideal. Um,
absolutely.
so the next question is there a duration before sleep to stop screen time?
Yep.
Yes, it's studies say like 2 hours, and the screen time is because, and that means laptops,
Right.
iPads, phones, TVs, computers, I mean, everything, because it emits a blue wave light,
Mhm.
which stimulates us. And so that's another challenging thing because people like to watch TV. But if
Exactly.
you are having sleep issues, I would encourage you to turn the screens off and grab a book and read a book. And what's interesting is I looked into Nooks and Kindles,
Uh-huh.
and because those are screens, but they don't emit a blue light.
Oh, they don't?
No.
Oh, interesting.
And
Okay.
so, but if you're
Mhm.
reading off of your phone, it's a little different. And so it's important to go through those apps if you're going to be like the Nook has its own app because it's Barnes and Noble,
Mhm.
but to make sure that you're just not getting the blue screen, the blue wavelength. And so they do make glasses that block out blue waves.
Right.
I have
Mhm.
it for my kids for when they're gaming and
Mhm.
to help just reduce the stimulation that they're receiving from their screens. So, and for a while there, I changed my cell phone I went to a grayscale color. Like I made all
Okay.
the colors go away at a certain time at night.
Right. Mhm.
And in my house, we have red lights. So
Oh,
we use a red light in the bedrooms and in the kitchen, one of the main lights, so that it,
is that a light that gives you more or it stimulates your brain to maybe rest?
yes. So
Oh,
it starts the circadian rhythm. And
okay.
because even our lights that we have in our kitchen, like everybody usually, those still emit a light that messes with our brains. And so going to a red light. So have you ever been camping though, and you use the headlamp, and if it's a white headlamp, and if you try to look away, like you end up seeing spots. But if you ever use a red light on a headlamp, like you can see, and you don't have that at the issue where you're seeing spots and whatnot, because our brain just receives that light so much easier.
Very interesting. What
Uh,
about the leg syndrome?
The restless leg syndrome usually has to do with your diet. And so what it is
Really?
you're lacking magnesium. And so
Magnesium.
magnesium is a really great it's wonderful to have because it creates a lot of biochemical reactions in our body,
Uh-huh.
magnesium does. And so it helps metabolize energy. So magnesium metabolizes energy and it also helps synthesize neurotransmitters for our brain. But the metabolizing um, energy will help with the restless leg syndrome.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
just increasing your magnesium would help with that.
Wonderful. And I think his last question, I think I know the answer to this one, but is once you're sleep deprived, can you recover from it? And my guess is yes, you can do it. You can break a habit and then recover. Your body can recover.
Well, if you're sleep deprived, it depends on how much your house, like what we're talking about. Like if we're talking about where, like I said earlier, like if you're, shortening, if you're sleeping, functioning off of short sleep throughout the week and then
Right.
trying to bank it on the weekends, it's not gonna, you're still gonna remain in a deficit. So if
Sure.
you're sleep deprived, like if you're doing it one or two nights and then you need to bank, make up for it, yeah, you can. But if you're chronically sleep deprived,
Right.
yeah, you can turn it around, but you got to totally change your habits.
Exactly. Okay. Very
So,
good. We have another question from Jan, but before we go to that question, let's go to the tips. Let's talk about the
yeah,
tips that you have for the
so some of
viewers.
them I already touched on, but yeah, well, let's run through them because
That'd be great.
we're losing time.
Ever. Sounds good.
So stick to a schedule. Go to bed
Schedule. Okay.
and
Number
wake
one,
up at the
schedule.
same
Hmm.
time every day, and that includes the weekends. And do the best you
Okay.
can with that. And I know that people try to do events on the weekends, so they tend to stay
Sure.
up a little later. But just try to stick to the same schedule
Okay.
and avoid long naps. Like if you are trying to make up for sleep, keep your naps at 20 minutes. Anything
Yes.
beyond that, you start to go into a deeper sleep, and then when you try to wake up out of it, your whole rhythm,
It's
your body
hard to get out of it.
I would thought I was going to sleep for the night, and
Yeah.
so avoid long naps. Keep them 20, 30 minutes max.
Are those called power naps?
Yes. Yep,
Nice.
yep,
All
yep.
right. Good.
Have a bedtime ritual. And
Okay.
what I mean by that is like do the same things, like what you do with whether you're brushing your teeth, and how you turn your lights off, set your fan on, whether you're reading a book, like just do the same thing so that when you start to do it, your body's like, oh, it's time to go to
It's
sleep.
time. Mm-hmm.
So just do the
Good.
same thing. Um, and when you awake, get in the sun as soon as you can. Like I
Okay.
know
Get
sometimes
some
we wake up
vitamin
before
D.
the sun rises, but get some sun on your body. Let your body know that it's awake. The day has started, and also you want to try to get 15 to 20 minutes of sunshine on your exposed skin. And
Okay.
the reason for that is to get vitamin D because
Sure.
vitamin D is huge with helping. It's always been helping with the immune system, but there's so much more with vitamin D deficiencies that they're discovering now. Vitamin C, vitamin D deficiencies is now associated with sleep problems.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So,
Okay.
and interestingly enough, here in Arizona, even though we have an abundant amount
Hmm.
of sunshine, we have a ton of people that are vitamin D deficient because
Yep.
they're putting sunscreen on, and the vitamin D isn't getting in, or we're not able to produce vitamin D because
Sure.
the sun rays are not
It
getting
blocks it.
to our skin. So make sure you're getting sun on your body. And side tangent on that. So if you are vitamin D deficient and you're not taking a supplement, and it's hard to know if you're vitamin D deficient, but most people are, unfortunately. But you can eat foods like salmon. There's a lot of fish that have vitamin D. Eggs have vitamin D in them. The yolks do. So make sure you're eating the yolks. There's a lot of fortified cereals and juices out there with vitamin D. So just make sure you're getting some vitamin D. Ideally
Wonderful.
from the sun. uh, Exercise daily. If you're not exercising daily, get out and move your body because if you're moving your body, it's actually going to help you sleep better at the end of the day. So get out and exercise. Um, Make sure your room is cool, quiet, and dark. So if you have things plugged in your room, whether you have a phone in there or a MacBook, or, something like that, those sometimes still emit a tiny little light on the plug. Make sure you cover them or don't allow them
Okay.
to emit that light into your room because it will disrupt you. So cool, quiet, and dark.
Dark.
Uh, and I already said, mind your electronics, watch that blue
Hmm.
wavelength and avoid the alcohol late at night and caffeine. And they say you should not have caffeine after 2 o'clock. And
Right.
on that note, mind your medicines. That's my last tip. So whether you're taking, a prescribed medication, if it's antidepressant or heart pressure, blood pressure
Hmm.
medicine, like make sure that you're taking those at the beginning of the day, unless you're told to take them at night, because sometimes they have things in them that will affect your sleep.
Sure. That's
Cold
true.
medicines have stimulants in them, so be
Yes.
wary of those. A lot of headache medicines have caffeine in them, so be wary of those. So just mind your medicines, like really
Yeah.
pay attention to what you're ingesting in your body, because that is going to impact your sleep.
Wonderful tips. So wonderful tips on those. You touched on eggs, and I know that Jan had a question about a fact or a myth. Drinking 4 to 6 ounces of pure egg whites before sleep will help you fall asleep and your body to have the proteins you need to restore muscle. They work out a lot. Is that fact or a myth?
That is a really interesting question, Jan. I would have to look into that, but I would dare say it would be a myth. And the only reason I say that is because with egg whites, the an egg white isn't a pure protein. And so the whole egg is a pure protein. So our bodies actually don't utilize egg whites the way that people think that they do, because there's no yolk. Like we need the whole egg in order for our body to use all of the amino acids and the protein the way it's designed to be used. And so my hunch is going to say that that is a myth, but I can definitely look into that, and then I'll get back to you on the AARP page and answer it there, just to follow back up with you. But I would dare say it's a myth out of the gate.
There we go. Well, Coach Sharon will follow up on that one.
Yes.
We're going to go to Patty's question. She's got a question about the problem with sleep is having to go to the restroom several times a night. So, how can we avoid that? How do we stop
So
that?
if it's several times in the night, then I mean, there's a couple of things I would consider. And one is make sure you're doing your hydration throughout the day and not dumping it all in at night, and make sure if you're hydrating throughout the day consistently, then it would be easier for you to probably not have to urinate in the middle of the night as frequently as you're saying, several times. It's normal for people to get up one time in the night to
Hmm.
go to the bathroom and use the restroom. And in that case, try to keep the lights low, or if you can, use a red light, because if you're turning the light on when you're going to the bathroom, it can totally wake you up and it's really hard to get back to sleep. So I would recommend using a red light, or just learn how to navigate your bedroom in the dark. uh, but so try to do a lot of your hydration during the day, so you're not loading up at night and having to use the restroom so much at night, and see if that helps.
Thank you for the questions. And let's review real fast the tips. Let me see if I remember. The tip number one, stick to a schedule. Number two would be have a bedtime ritual. And that includes obviously, well, yeah, just having the right time, the ritual going to sleep. I
Mhm.
think that's important. Number three would be get some sun on your body as early as you can. So we got to get that vitamin D going. Number four, exercise daily. And number five, sleep in a cool, quiet, and dark room. Do we miss any?
Mind your electronics.
Oh, that's right. Yes, mind the electronics. We've got to be careful with that light, blue light.
Yep.
Avoid the blue light.
Right.
Excellent.
Alcohol and food.
That's right.
Right.
Alcohol and food also limit that. Yep,
And the
that's
last one was
wonderful.
mind your medicines.
So there you have it. The tips for a healthy night sleep, good sleep hygiene, as we're going to call it, or good health, good sleep health as well. So, Coach Sherian, what do we have to look for in our next show, which will be on Tuesday, March 16th, I believe?
Yes. Yes. So we're going to circle back around and do tips to boost your immunity, because we're
Okay,
still in the middle of this pandemic. Not everybody's been able to be fortunate enough to get a vaccine.
sure.
We haven't returned to work, and, people are starting to be outside more.
Mhm.
So just giving you some tips to boost your immunity to keep you ahead of the game.
So there you have it, everyone. Hope to see you again next in 2 weeks on March 16th for the next show on immunity tips. Coach Sherry Ann, thank you so much for being here with us today. Again, Alex Juarez, your communications director for AARP Arizona. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you again on March 16th. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you.